After hosting a dinner for my wife's entire family, her brother raised a glass and toasted, "To Evan, our resident speed bump. Always there, never in the way." My son laughed and said, "Dad's like beige paint, technically present." My wife smirked and added, "He's dependable, like a broken watch, right twice a day." They all laughed. I just kept smiling. Last night, my wife showed up alone at my door, crying, whispering, "Please, don't do this." It was supposed to be a celebration. My wife Kara had just gotten a promotion at her marketing firm, director of impressions or something equally meaningless, and she'd invited her entire family over for a Saturday dinner. 14 people. Her parents, her 2 sisters and their husbands, her younger brother Max, 3 nephews, our son Jordan, and her Aunt Liz, who once told me I have the presence of a neutral wallpaper. Nice group. I spent the entire morning shopping and prepping. Kara supervised, which mostly meant telling me what not to forget while she got her nails done. Jordan, our 15-year-old, ducked out to work on homework, which I later found out was him sneaking in an hour of video games. I chopped, stirred, baked. By 6 p.m., the house smelled like roasted garlic, lemon thyme chicken, and effort. They all arrived like a wave. Coats tossed over chairs, wine bottles opened before I could finish setting the table. I smiled. I always smile. Dinner began. I carved the chicken, passed the salad, poured the wine. My reward? A few nods. Max gave me a thumbs up without looking up from his phone. Then, halfway through the meal, he clinked his glass and stood. "Everyone," Max said, raising his wine, "let's toast to Kara, the promotion queen." Applause followed. My wife beamed. "And while we're at it," Max continued, looking directly at me, "let's raise a glass to Evan. That's me. Because every family needs a mascot. Someone to make us look better by comparison. You know, the man who brings paper plate energy to a porcelain world." Laughter exploded around the table. Real, belly-deep laughter. My son actually spit out his soda and choked, then said, "He's like one of those inflatable dancing guys outside a car dealership. Just kinda, flopping around." Kara leaned back in her chair and added, smirking, "Honestly, Evan's like decaf coffee. Always there, but never really doing anything. Even Aunt Liz got in on it, at least he sets a good example for what not to become." I chuckled softly, eyes fixed on my plate. Inside, my ears rang. My pulse slowed. I've always been the one to take a joke. Even when it wasn't funny. Even when it sliced. But this was a roast without a punchline, just blood. No one defended me. Not even Kara. When I stood up to grab the wine bottle from the kitchen, Kara smirked, "Where you going, chef?" "Don't worry, we're just teasing." I poured myself a full glass and took a sip in the kitchen, facing the stove, back to the laughter. My hands shook slightly, but not from rage. Not even from embarrassment. No, it was something else. Something colder. As I leaned on the counter, tuning out the noise from the dining room, one thought kept looping through my head. They think I'm harmless. They think I'll always stay. I walked back in, topped off everyone's glass, smiled wide, and said nothing. Because they didn't realize it yet, but tonight wasn't a roast. It was a funeral. They just hadn't buried the old version of me yet. The night ended with a stack of dishes, a ringing in my ears, and my son yelling "GG, Dad," as he retreated upstairs with his cousins to play Fortnite. The adults moved into the living room, leaving behind crumpled napkins, half-full wine glasses, and the lingering scent of something acrid, not from the food, but from the way they laughed at me like I wasn't there. I cleaned up in silence. Kara didn't offer to help. She was curled up on the couch with her sister, replaying Max's paper plate line and wheezing like it was the height of comedy. I could hear them through the open-concept living room. Open spaces make mockery travel easier. "He just stands there with that blank face," her sister giggled. "Like a mannequin someone forgot to dress." "Yeah," Kara replied. "But at least he's predictable. Like Beige." That one stayed with me. After the kitchen was spotless and the dishwasher hummed, I went to our bedroom and shut the door. I didn't say goodnight. I didn't need to. Kara came in later, tipsy and still grinning. She peeled off her earrings and looked at me through the mirror while removing her makeup. "You took it well tonight," she said casually. "Took what?" "The jokes," she replied, like I'd asked something dumb. "You're usually a little more sensitive." "I'm not sensitive," I said. "I'm patient." That made her pause. She looked at me through the mirror again, brow furrowed like she was trying to solve a puzzle she'd suddenly realized had more pieces than the box promised. "You're not mad?" she asked, with a tone halfway between curiosity and bait. "No," I said, and I smiled. Everyone had a good time. That's what matters, right? She turned back to the mirror and kept wiping her face. "I mean, Max was a little harsh, but you know how he is," she added. "Besides, it's kind of your thing. The unshakable husband. I nodded. Right. My thing. She kissed me on the cheek, a dry press of lips without meaning, and crawled into bed. She was asleep in minutes. I wasn't. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every line. Every laugh. Every glance they exchanged while I stood in the room like a fixture, useful, background, ignorable. Then I remembered something. 2 months earlier, I'd overheard Max talking to Kara in the kitchen when he thought I was out running errands. He'd said, "I don't get why you stay with him. You could do way better." Kara had laughed and replied, "He's easy. He'll never leave. You don't leave a coffee table because it's boring. You just decorate it." It hadn't hit me then. But tonight, it did. They didn't just underestimate me. They dismissed me entirely. As if I were a prop in their play. As if I existed to make them feel wittier, taller, more alive. And props don't fight back. I got out of bed at 2 a.m., walked quietly down the hall, and sat in the dark kitchen. I opened my laptop, logged into our joint accounts, and began reading every transaction Kara had made in the last year. There were a few flagged ones. Gifts I didn't remember. Travel bookings that didn't match any calendar invites. Nothing overt, just suspicious. I made a spreadsheet. I started watching. The next morning, Kara acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, handed me a mug, and kissed my forehead. "You good?" she asked. "Better than ever," I said. And I meant it. Because while she thought she was living in a sitcom where I played the fool, she didn't realize the show had changed genres overnight. It wasn't comedy anymore. It was surveillance. The first few days were quiet. Routine, almost peaceful if you ignored the invisible rot between every word. Kara continued her part, flawlessly. Mornings filled with chirpy "have a good day, babe" and kisses to my cheek. Evenings spent scrolling her phone next to me while we sat on opposite ends of the couch like two ghosts pretending to haunt the same place. But I saw everything differently now. Each smile was a performance. Each comment from Jordan, "Mom's got another girl's brunch this Sunday," another data point. Each credit card charge was a breadcrumb she didn't know she was leaving. I never confronted her. That would have ended the game too early. Instead, I became the most attentive husband she'd ever known. I took on more chores, planned a date night, even booked us a weekend getaway to the coast. She beamed with approval. I could see it in her eyes. "He's still asleep." Good. Because while she relaxed into her throne, I was moving pieces behind the curtain. The spreadsheet I started that night after the dinner grew into something vast, organized by date, card, vendor, and category. I found inconsistencies. Payments for hotels when she was supposedly at work retreats. Online orders shipped to a P.O. box I'd never seen before. I checked phone records. She'd been talking to someone named Renee almost daily, sometimes past midnight. I don't know any Renee. I installed a data sync on our shared home computer, quietly routing browser history and saved passwords to a cloud folder only I could access. Her Amazon account had a private wishlist full of expensive tech gear and men's watches, none of which had ever shown up in our house. Then came the banking move. Using a corporate consultant I met through work, I opened a series of accounts in my name only. I transferred parts of my income automatically into them using a third-party scheduler that wouldn't trigger alerts in our shared profile. I restructured my 401k under a separate entity. Legally sound. Practically invisible. Every day, I played the same tired version of myself. I laughed at her stories. I nodded when she complained about work. I asked about her yoga instructor's dog, Sprinkles or Sparkles or something. And every night, when she slept with her back to me, I updated my notes. Added to the file. Rewrote the script. She had no idea. One Saturday morning, as I washed dishes, Jordan walked in and said, "You know Mom's been acting weird, right?" I turned. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "I dunno. She just keeps checking her phone and smiling at nothing. Then she pretends like she's mad when I ask." I ruffled his hair. "She's probably planning a surprise. Don't ruin it." He grinned. "Like a second dog?" I smiled back. "Sure. Like a second dog." After he left the room, I added a new note, "Jordan has noticed." Mask slipping. That afternoon, I pretended to nap on the patio while Kara took a call in the kitchen. She didn't know the security camera in the hallway, the one I couldn't get to work, had been quietly recording. I watched the footage later. Watched her lean against the counter, grinning, whispering into the phone. "No, he's clueless. It's kind of adorable how easy this is." She laughed. Tucked her hair behind her ear. "He actually booked a weekend trip. I think he's trying to rekindle or whatever." Perfect timing. I'll be out before he even realizes. The rage didn't come. Not this time. Only clarity. She was winding the spring. She thought she was setting the stage. She didn't realize the curtains had already opened. The day I handed her a glass of wine on the beach and told her I'd been thinking about renewing our vows, she cried. Not the overwhelmed, grateful kind of tears. Not joy. She panicked for a half second. I saw it. A flicker. A hesitation that said this wasn't in the script. She recovered fast. Pressed her hand over her chest and said yes, of course, how romantic. She kissed me like it was real. She didn't know I'd already cancelled the reservation behind her back before the trip even started. The vow renewal was a ghost. Just bait. Just one more step in the illusion I was building, a show of trust, sincerity, blind love. All while I burned our bridge behind her heels. By the end of that weekend, I'd wiped my financial fingerprints off everything we once shared. The house? Still in both our names, technically. But I'd had a quitclaim deed drawn up and quietly signed over to a trust in my name, one we formed years ago for tax purposes, back when Kara still thought we were a team. I found the dusty binder in the garage, updated the trustees, and made myself sole controller. The house was mine. Legally. She'd never know until she tried to take it. I went deeper. Life insurance? Switched beneficiaries. Joint credit cards? Closed. Slowly, methodically, so nothing triggered alerts. I opened new lines in my name alone, rerouted utilities and autopay to new accounts, started documenting every time she accidentally overdrew our shared checking, which I began letting happen, on purpose. Why? Because it made her look financially reckless. And that would matter. I gathered proof of spending. Not just the trips or the gifts or the P.O. box orders, but the little things. The $100 coffee runs, the endless Uber Eats to addresses I didn't recognize. I started using a forensic accountant, a contact from work, to help me build a case. I framed it like a divorce prep scenario. She never knew. On the surface, I was calm. I kissed her in the mornings. Brought her coffee to bed on Sundays. Jordan thought I was becoming more romantic. Kara started telling friends we were doing better. I heard her on the phone once saying, I think the reset worked. I've got him wrapped again. She was wrong. She was wrapped. In velvet rope, quietly wound around her by a man she thought couldn't tie a knot. Jordan went to his summer leadership camp 2 weeks later, the one I'd paid for in full from the college fund she kept saying we needed to dip into. He hugged me before he left and said, "You've been different lately." Confident. Like, cooler. That one hit me. Not because I needed his approval. But because it meant my silence hadn't gone unnoticed. Kara stayed behind when Jordan left. Said she had a spa day scheduled, but I saw the bag she tried to hide in the trunk. A weekend bag. Packed light. I said nothing. Watched her drive away. GPS later pinged her 4 cities over. Same one those P.O. box charges kept pointing to. A hotel check-in appeared on the joint card. I let it go through, just this once. A gift. One last receipt. That night, I sat in my office, poring over the timelines, files, photos, statements. It was all ready. The truth wasn't just on paper, it was airtight. Sharp. Bulletproof. I emailed my attorney the final files. Tomorrow, I typed, we begin. And I slept like a man who knew he'd already won. She came home Sunday night, glowing. Hair tousled like she'd been in salt air, not a spa. Wearing the same sundress she'd once told me she saved for special company. Her heels clicked on the hardwood like punctuation marks she didn't know she was writing on a confession. I greeted her at the door, smile warm, eyes empty. Good weekend? She kissed my cheek. Relaxing, she said, tossing her bag behind the couch like a teenager sneaking past curfew. I nodded. Glad to hear it. She thought we were in our honeymoon phase again. She poured herself wine, flopped on the couch, and talked about scheduling couples massages as if nothing had rotted beneath her words. As if her time bomb wasn't already ticking. Monday came. Jordan texted he'd made a new friend at camp named Travis who knew every Marvel movie line by heart. I sent back a fist bump emoji. Then I made a phone call. By Wednesday, my lawyer filed a motion for formal separation along with a 12-page financial affidavit, a petition for asset protection, and an emergency freeze on joint accounts due to suspected fraud. Kara never saw the papers. Not directly. Instead, she was served during her team's Thursday morning strategy meeting. In front of her assistant. And her boss. They say the process server walked right into the conference room and said, for Kara DeSoto. Have a productive morning. She came home that night like a storm trapped in stilettos. I was reading in the living room, legs crossed, calm. She slapped the documents on the coffee table so hard a wineglass tipped. What is this? I looked up like I was just seeing her. Exactly what it looks like. You filed behind my back? You made plenty of moves behind mine, I said. I just played better. Her face turned from shock to fury. This is disgusting. You blindsided me. No, I said. I simply stopped being blind. She paced like a caged cat. You're overreacting. There's no fraud, Evan. This is divorce-level drama. It is, I interrupted. And you wrote the first act. I'm just submitting the script. She froze. That's when I pulled out the manila folder, not hers. Mine. I laid it on the table. Itemized, transaction history. P.O. Box documentation. Hotel stays. Screenshots. Audio transcription of her beach conversation. Her eyes flicked to the top sheet. You were spying on me? I was documenting you. Jesus, Evan, this is crazy. You think this'll hold up? I smiled, just a small thing. It already has. You've been bleeding the account for months. I can prove intent. And misrepresentation. The house is in trust now. The accounts are mine. The legal team's lined up, and I've got a forensic paper trail that would make Enron flinch. She looked pale. Unmoored. You set me up. No, I said quietly, standing. You built the trap. I just waited until you stepped in it. She sat down slowly, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Like she was waiting for the punchline to land. But it already had. The silence stretched. I gathered the papers, stacked them neatly, and slid them into my briefcase. I'll be staying elsewhere tonight, I told her. Jordan comes home in 6 days. That gives us both time to decide how we want to explain this. Her voice cracked. Evan. I stopped at the door. You always said I was dependable, I said over my shoulder. You just never asked what I was capable of. And then I left calmly, deliberately, while she sat in the ruins of the empire she thought she ruled. The reset was over. It was time for the reckoning. It took less than 48 hours for the walls to buckle. Friday morning, Kara's lawyer, a new one, not the flashy divorce concierge she'd bragged about hiring back in April, called my attorney with a flurry of questions masked as outrage. They'd seen the file. They knew they were cornered. My side didn't flinch. Everything was documented, timestamped, organized in neat exhibits. The kind of cold, meticulous preparation that made their arguments look emotional and flimsy by comparison. The judge granted the freeze. The motion passed. Her accounts were now as barren as her poker face. That evening, I returned to the house of my house, for the first time since leaving her with the truth. I wasn't sure what to expect. What I didn't expect was the smell of lemon-scented panic. She had cleaned everything. The kitchen was sparkling, the fridge full, the pillows fluffed. My favorite dinner was on the stove, chicken marsala. She hadn't made that in years. Hey, she said softly, stepping into the doorway. Her hair pulled back. No makeup. A sweater she used to wear when she wanted sympathy. You hungry? No, I said. Her smile cracked at the edges. I wanted to talk, she continued, walking slowly toward the table. I think we got carried away. Lawyers and paperwork, and look, Evan, we don't have to burn it all down. We don't, I agreed. But I'm not the one who lit the match. She pulled out a chair. Didn't sit. Just hovered, hands trembling slightly. I was scared, she said finally. I saw you pulling away, always working, and I panicked. I made mistakes. Panicked? I said, stepping closer. Panicked is forgetting a birthday. You planned. She blinked. I didn't mean to hurt you. Kara, I said, voice flat. You meant to replace me. Silence. Then, the cracks showed. I just thought if I left cleanly, I could restart. I didn't want drama. I didn't want this. She gestured to the table, the papers, the ruins. And yet here we are, I said. Her shoulders sagged. Her hands gripped the back of the chair like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Evan, she said, barely above a whisper, can we fix it? I considered her for a moment. The woman who laughed while I was the family joke. Who let our son think his father was a sideshow act. Who turned our home into a waiting room for her exit plan. Then I said, we can't fix what you dismantled. Tears welled up. I felt nothing. I handed her a printed document, a proposed settlement agreement. Fair, but firm. She keeps her car. Her personal belongings. No spousal support. No stake in the house. Mutual custody of Jordan, but primary residence with me. She looked at the pages like they were in a foreign language. This is so cold. So was locking me out of our life. She sank into the chair. Everyone's going to think I'm the villain. I tilted my head. Then stop acting like one. I walked upstairs, past the perfectly arranged photos she'd left untouched. Every smiling image now looked like a warning. In the bedroom, I found the envelope I'd left hidden in the drawer months ago, a letter I'd written to myself when I decided I wasn't going to stay small anymore. I read the last line aloud. She made me the joke. I'll make myself the punchline. Jordan got back from camp the following Thursday. He was taller. Tanned. Carried a duffel bag and a smile that hadn't been dulled yet by reality. Did Mom redecorate or something? He asked as we stepped into the foyer. It smells like fake happiness. I laughed, short and low. Something like that. Kara wasn't there to greet him. She'd moved into her sister's guest room 2 days prior, after realizing I wasn't bending, negotiating, or interested in pillow talk apologies. The air in the house was lighter without her. Jordan unpacked while I reheated leftovers. He looked around and finally asked what I knew he would. Did something happen? I sat across from him at the kitchen island. I didn't lie. I didn't dramatize. Your mom and I are separating, I said. We'll both still be here for you, but we're not going to live together anymore. He blinked, but not in surprise. More like confirmation. Okay, he said, voice level. Honestly? I kind of figured. You've been different. But in a good way. That landed deeper than he probably knew. He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. Is it about the dinner? I froze. What dinner? He shifted awkwardly. That night, when everyone made fun of you. I knew it wasn't cool. I was just caught up. I've been feeling bad ever since. I nodded slowly. Thanks for saying that. He looked down. I don't want to be like them. You won't be, I said. Because you noticed. That night, as Jordan played Xbox in his room, I opened my email and saw a new message from Kara. Subject line, one last try. I clicked. Inside was a wall of text. Not angry, not cold, just exhausted. A performance still, but laced with something new, desperation. She offered to walk away with less. To make peace. To tell Jordan it was all mutual. I just want to feel like I didn't lose everything, she wrote. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my lawyer, tagged it, and filed it in the same digital folder as the rest of her greatest hits. Later that weekend, her mother showed up at the door, no warning. I opened it with Jordan standing just behind me. She looked tired, her pearl sitting awkwardly on a blouse that hadn't been ironed. Evan, she said, smiling without conviction, can we talk? I kept my hand on the door. Now's not a good time. She peeked past me, eyes landing on Jordan. Just 5 minutes. We're family. I tilted my head. No. We're not. I shut the door. Jordan stared at me. Did she really just? Yup. He laughed, genuinely. God, they're so fake. Let them be, I said. We've got better things to do. Monday morning, I mailed the finalized settlement papers. It was done. The house stayed mine. Jordan stayed with me. Kara waived all further claims. A month later, I started building something new, a small studio above the garage, something I'd wanted for years. I hung a sign on the door, Punchline Workshop. A reminder. Every story needs a setup. But the best stories end with silence after the laugh, the kind of silence that says, he knew the joke. And he wrote the ending himself. Kara never got hers. But I got mine. And it was worth every second of waiting.